Hello and welcome back to my garage. In today's video, another wheel bearing job. I don't know how much I made of these already, but here we have again another one. In this case it is for a Renault Clio. No, it's not this time my mom's car. It is from a friend of mine and the wheel bearing is really bad. If you drive maybe 40-50 kilometers an hour, then you definitely hearing him, and if you go into the corner, then it's getting worse because the load is going on the bearing. That is how they behave, and that's one of the methods to check if they're worn. So if you hear a grinding noise when you're turning, let me see, to the right, then most of the time it's the left bearing that is gone, and if the noise is getting worse when you're turning left, then the right bearing is gone. There is just one tool you need to have, or I must say two tools you need to have, and it's a slide hammer and a bearing tool. And the bearing tool I made a video and I will post it here. From the slide hammer I didn't make a video yet, but I don't think it's really that interesting to do about that. But those are the tools that you need to have. At least that's the method how I like to do it. But of course you can take the whole assembly off and put it in a workshop press. If you have one of those, then that's the way to go. But this is, in my opinion, the much easier way. Oh well, enough said. Let's get going. Well, I found something else also. The lower engine mount is shot. The rubber in there is just, gone. So we need to replace that also. But for now, we're going to focus on the wheel bearing. There is also another trick to determine if the wheel bearing is bad, and that is, it's easier with a tire on it, but I'm just thinking about it. So what you need to do is just hold the spring with one hand and just turn the wheel. And most of the time you can feel the vibration of the bearing in the spring. That is also one of the ways you can check if the wheel bearing is bad. What I like to do first is remove the axle nut. These are T35. Next up we want to remove the caliper. You can do it in two ways. One way is to remove one of these nuts and get it off, or just take these two big bolts here in the back and take the whole thing off. But personally I don't like the color of the disc. The color of the disc is, in my opinion, a little bit too reddish, and most of the time that's an indication that the caliper is sticking for some reason. Maybe the pads are sticking, or maybe the piston is sticking, but it looks like it is sticking. So I'm going to take it apart, lubricate everything up and put it back together, because these pads and discs aren't that old. I didn't install them, some other guy did it, or a garage did it, I don't know, but this isn't good. These are 13. Well, what do you know? This thing is stuck in there. This one is loose, but this is really stuck in there. So we need to take that out. And that is probably the reason why the disc is overheating. As you can see, the pads are, brand new. But the color, this reddish color, that is a sign of, overheating. Well, that thing is really in there. Well, I'm just going to put a socket on here, and this is a 17. And hopefully we can get it spinning. So it is out now. We are going to lubricate this when we put everything back together. So be sure when you do pads or rotors, or at least pads, that you lubricate these pins, or at least make sure that they're not sticking. And like always, put the caliper somewhere safe, that it doesn't drop on your head. And these two bolts are 18. There we have the bracket. And now we can take the disc off. They also did replace the lower ball joint. That's also something I did not do, at least not on this car. I will post a link in here from my mom's car. I did this job, so. And in this case, these are 17s. Don't take it all the way out, or wait with it until you remove this guy. I'm just a little bit of impatient, I think. These things are in the bearing tool, and I do believe you use them like this, just to, well, run them through here. And on a flat surface you can just use them like so. I'm only just tensioning it, so the slack is off, and maybe the slide hammer has now some more force to be able to get it off. Well, that went easy. At least I know how I can use these pins now. The inside of the case doesn't look that bad. There's still grease in there and no, well, rust and stuff like that, what I have seen before. But, oh well, it is bad, so we need to replace it. So now it's time to get this pin out. Or bolt. And hopefully we can now just pry this down so it comes loose. And now we're able to push back the drive shaft, or at least remove it. Most of the time it's easier to remove the bearing and insert a new bearing by, well, pushing it back on the lower ball joint. So before I start, let's do that. Not that you cannot do it like so, but you can make your life a bit easier this way. On the back there is a clip that we need to remove. Of course you cannot see it, so I can do two things. Or let you guess, or take this one out again. Hopefully you can see it now. There is the point of the clip I mentioned. It is just a piece of round stock bended into shape. Of course, this is spring steel. So most of the time we can just take a screwdriver behind it and get them off. It's really annoying, I don't even see it myself. The thing is over there, so maybe I can use the camera to assist me. Crap. And as you can see, this system is, well, pretty cooperating instead of some of those C-clips, you know, with those two eyelets in the top. Oh, frame, yes. So this thing is out now, and now we can install the tool to remove the bearing. In this case I used a 66mm ring with, well, the medium cup. But first let me put this back. And now it's just a matter of turning it the right way. Most of the time you hear a big snap just before it goes like that. And if you have that, then it's, well, at least moving. Well, here we have the outer race and the rest of the inner bearing. It is a bit crusty, but I don't feel any bumps or something in the bearing itself. Next up, we want to clean the groove where that spring thing is sitting. This thing. And of course the bore itself. Just get a little bit of sandpaper or Scotch-Brite and just clean it up. And when it's clean, just apply a little bit of grease or DW40. Just something to help to get the new bearing in there. You don't need a ton of grease, just a little bit. Well, let's first check if the bearings are at least somewhat the same. Looks like it, so that's okay. And now I am going to use the 71.5 ring, and it's just perfect. It's just a little tad smaller than the bearing, so that's great. And now it's just a matter of just pressing it all in again. Just keep on turning until it doesn't move anymore, of course within expectations, not that if I'm now going to turn and it's, well, binding, then, well, probably it is binding. So just be a little bit careful, especially the first couple of turns. Just be sure that we get it all the way. Yeah. And just have a little peek on the inside, and it looks like it's all the way in there. Next up we have to remove this outer or inner race, and you can do it a couple of ways. One of the ways is just clamp it right here and press it out with a, well, a shop press or something. Most of you guys don't have that. I do have a shop press, but I don't have one of those clamps. So I do it the old-fashioned way, and it is just cutting it as deep as possible without damaging it. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, then by all means don't do it. You can get these hubs separately. They aren't that expensive, or just get someone that can press it out for you. Well, hopefully that's deep enough. And now just get a good a good chisel and whack it a couple of times. And most of the times they just break because the material is really hard, but also very brittle. So you can snap it. Well, I just got a chisel that my dad uses to, well, boost cars. Yeah, that's also a fun story. But it just snapped off, just as expected. The only problem is it didn't go all the way, so let's try again. So that did the trick. As you can see, it is just fractured right there. Oh, I'm also bleeding. Well, that's always fun. This never happens to me. This is the first time the front hub doesn't fit my tool, or the other way around. So that's a bit of a bummer. Hopefully I have some other method I can use. Well, let's try a piece of thread rod. Hopefully it is strong enough to get it in there. And just like before, just a little bit of grease on there. Just before we're going to install this thing, we need to install this clip, and that should not be that difficult. Well, it is in there without tools, so it could not be easier. You want to use the biggest washer you can get in the hole in the back. So the first couple of turns is the most crucial. You want to get it in straight. Be sure that you have the washer at the back. If you don't do that, you're definitely going to ruin the bearing. We're almost there, but almost is not all the way. It's in there, it's turning. Now we need to wrestle the axle back in there. So we need to unhook the lower ball joint. And of course we're going to use a new nut. Just be sure that it is all the way in there and it's not binding or something. What you could do, as you can hear, it's, well, relatively loose in there, but that snap, I know it's all the way in there. But if you have a sticking one, what you can do is just put on the old nut and just crank it down and then take it off and then put on the new nut. So you definitely know for sure. Or else you're going to replace the bearings again really soon. But first the lower bolt with the nut for the ball joint. I'm going to torque this down when the wheel is on there. I don't think I will be able to do it otherwise. Just a little bit of anti-seize. At least I like to do that. Next up we're going to loop up the slider pins, just with some silicone paste. Next up is the caliper. Just be sure that the hose isn't turned into a pretzel when you put it back. And also here, just a little bit of silicone paste. Next up we are going to loop up the pads again. This is almost a brake job video also. It is the same steps, so I will do a brake job video of my mom's car, and it is probably exactly the same. So for the guys out there that watch this video, you probably don't have to watch the other. Next time we put the bolt back. And this is a 13. I did make one mistake. This thing is supposed to be on the back. So that's... At least I'm going to correct that. So, now it's at least at the back and the place it's supposed to be. I don't think it would be much of an issue to put it in the front, but this is how it's supposed to be, so we're going to do it like this. Next up I'm going to clean the brakes, because, well, I did put all kinds of grease on there, So we're going to clean the brakes and put back on the tire. And there you have it, how to change a wheel bearing on a Renault Clio Mark II. And in this case it's a phase 1, but the phase 2 is also the same. And probably this is the same on a lot of other Renault cars, but that will be in the description below. Yeah, it's a wheel bearing just like any other. Some minor differences is the snap ring. This one is at least a lot easier to get off and on, so that's a big win. But the only problem is my tool didn't fit. I can't remember that I ever had it before. So be sure that you have some thick threaded rod and some big nuts. Yeah, you make the joke. And be sure you have at least this. And of course the tool itself. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least learned something from it. And if you did, please give it a like. If you want to follow me around, you know what to do. And I will see you next time. Bye.